Hello class, it is I, Mr. Mikasa, and we are back with another edition of Mr. Mikasa's Digital Lessons. And this digital lesson is dedicated to my 6th as well as 7th grade social studies classes. And the purpose of today's video is to talk about your guys' essay planners that you'll be working on. So as you can see here, I got my little screenshot going on my laptop here, so you can see the cyclone of death. I also have a little annotation tool here that you guys could also use in order to help you to understand to help illustrate things I want to talk about in your guys' lesson today. So today what you guys need to do is you need to open up your guys' essay planners. And your essay planners will look like this. This is a general kind of format that I have for all the essay planners that you'd use in my social studies classes. And basically your planners consist of 3 parts, okay? You have your chicken foot thesis planner, which is what this one here is. So this whole entire thing here with your text box and stuff is your chicken foot thesis planner. This is to help plan out the thesis statement for your guys' essay. The second planner you guys work on are your bucketing activities. They look like this. This will help you plan out your guys' body paragraphs for your guys' essays. So that way you can get your information laid out. So that way you know exactly what you're talking about in each of your body paragraphs. And finally, the last plan you guys will work on, of course, will be your guys' essay planner outline. Looks just like this. And this is basically where you start typing your information and typing your information to lay out your essay. So that way, when it comes to actually writing it, all you're doing is just connecting the dots to different pieces. You have a fully completed essay. And of course, on the bottom here, we have the rubric. So let's talk about how you guys are being graded on your guys' planners real quick. So to get 100%, you must do 2 things. You, the student, effectively formulates and follows an action plan to explore a research question and use methods to collect and record consistently relevant and appropriate information. Basically, what does that mean? Basically, it means can you follow their action plans, which are your planners for that point, and is the information that you have consistent and relevant and appropriate to the topic that you're talking about, okay? So you don't have any information that doesn't deal with your topic. It's all precisely, all well organized. If you can do that, you get 100%. If not, you'll get less. And of course, if you exceed my expectations or the requirements of the instructions, you'll get 100% on that part. Get an extra credit on that part. So let's go on and talk about exactly what this planner is broken down into. So first of all, let's go read your instructions real quick. Your instructions say you will need to create a 5-paragraph essay answering your analytical questions. Whatever your question that you guys are answering, this is the essay you're planning it out for. You'll need to plan your essay with a chicken foot thesis planner, a bucketing activity, and an essay outline below the rubric on which you'll be graded. So we talked about those instructions real quick. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is your guys' chicken foot thesis statement. So this will be the first planner that we work on today. And the reason why that is the case is because this planner will help you plan out your thesis statement. All right. Now, for those of you guys who pay attention in your language and literature classes, you basically already know what a thesis statement is. A thesis statement is basically the argument of your paper. It's basically the core. It's what your whole paper is going to be about and how you're going to go about explaining that argument. So planning out your thesis statement is actually super important because whether you're aware of it or not, the moment that you plan out your thesis statement, you're actually planning out the course of your entire paper. All right, essay writing is very formulaic. And by that I mean that essays have a very specific format that you need to follow and a very specific formula of how it's organized. Once you learn how that formula works, regardless of what kind of essay or research paper you're writing, once you get that formula down, it's really, really simple, very straightforward, and by the book, all right? It's very, very simple in that part. Most kids struggle with essay writing, and the reason why they struggle with it is because they're not sure how the essay is laid out. They don't know the formula, they don't know the steps. This process I'm going to show you guys is going to eliminate that confusion and make it super easy, because once you create your thesis statement, everything else in the planners down below just falls into place very, very quickly. So let's go and talk about how you guys are going to interact with this document. The nice thing about this planner that I give you guys is that you have tables with little spaces here like this. That's how it's open. All you got to do is you click on it and you can start typing inside of the boxes. All right. So that's how you guys are going to work. Let's say cheese and tomatoes. All right, so stuff like that, okay? It's actually basically how you guys can do that. So that's how you guys will be filling out your guys' planners. You'll be typing up information inside of your guys' text boxes there. And you'll be doing that throughout the entirety of the document. All right, so that's how you guys will be working on this. So let's pretend you guys are working on an analytical question. So when you guys do a chicken foot thesis planner, the important thing to remember is what is your question? So I'm going to type my question in here. Let's say my question is, what is your favorite video game of all time? Okay, so that's an example of our analytical question that we have, okay? Actually, no, let's go ahead and change it. What is the best video game of all time? That way we don't have to worry about working on opinion. This is going to be based on fact. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. So that's your analytical question on that part. So all you need to do is you type in your analytical question in the first box, so that way you have a good understanding of what your paper is going to be about. Now the next thing you need to work on is your guys' arguments. A little misspelling there, I do apologize. What you guys need to work on next are your guys' argument. Now the argument is basically the part where you answer the question, all right? What is the best video game of all time? And that's what your argument point is going to be about, all right? So that's the very first part of your thesis statement. So I'm going to put down the best video game of all time is, I'm going to say, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like that. ... All right, so that's my argument. So now we know exactly what my paper is going to be about. My paper is going to be about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and more than that, I'm going to explain what makes it the best video game of all time, all right? So when it comes to coming up with your thesis basically consists of 3 parts. Well, actually, not 3 parts, 2 parts really. The first part is your argument, okay? What stance are you going to be taking for your paper? The next part is your case points. Now, the funny thing about this one is for this essay, you only have to give me 3 case points, right? That's usually the minimum requirement that people usually do when it comes to an essay. Most essays are about 5 paragraphs in length. That's how it works. But in reality, though, when you guys get out of high school and move on to higher education, your paper could consist anywhere between like 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 case points or more, all right? And this is where this kind of like your whole thesis kind of comes into place, because what this does is it kind of helps break down what your case points are going to be about. In this case, we're only going to do 3 because you guys are not in college yet and I don't have the time to grade 20 different case points on something. So what you need to do now is figure out what 3 ways makes this video game the greatest of all time, all right? So for your argument, you just put down whatever the 3 things you're going to talk about in your argument. So for example, if I was to do Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I would say graphics, let's say story, and let's say multiplayer. So these 3 reasons are why Call of Duty is the greatest video game of all time. So let me go ahead and just unbold those real quick because it makes it look nice. There you go. So as you can see, I now have my argument and I have my 3 case points. Bam, bam, bam. All right, and that's pretty much how you plan out your guys' circuit for thesis planner. Whether you guys are aware of it or not, you've pretty much written out your guys' thesis. From this point, the next part you need to work on is combining them together to make your thesis statement. To make your thesis statement, all you need to do is take your argument and combine it with your 3 case points. So in my example here, I'll type it out. The best video game of all time is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Oops. Messing my typing here. So you can see I got my argument there. Now I type in my case points because of its graphics, comma, now my second case point, story, comma, and my 3rd case point. Well, and multiplayer. Let's say multiplayer mode, just to make it sound fancier. And there you go. As you can see there, my thesis statement is now completely written out. We now know, as a reader, whoever's reading my paper knows exactly what my paper is going to be about and why we think this way, okay? And that's exactly what you need to do for yours as well. So whatever your argument's going to be about, whatever your case points are, you need to figure those out and get those taken care of, okay? And that's pretty much how you do your chicken foot thesis planner. It makes it really, really simple, all right? So if I was to clear out my annotations, once again, my argument, I'm going to highlight that in yellow so that way you guys can see that. So here is my argument. I'm now going to highlight my first case point in green, my first case point, my second case point in orange, story, and my 3rd case point in blue. All right, and that's pretty much how you guys fill out a chicken foot thesis planner. So now that you guys have your chicken foot thesis planner planned out, go ahead and start working on yours real quick. Once you guys are done working on your chicken foot thesis planner, we'll come back and have you guys start working on your bucketing activity next. And I'm gonna give you a little pause here for a little bit so that way you guys can do that, and then we'll take care of that real quick like. All right, I'll see you guys after the break. Okay, so now we're back with our essay planner. So by this point, you should have a fully functioning chicken foot thesis planner already done. Your analytical question should be written down, your argument, your 3 case points, as well as your thesis statement. So now that we know what our paper is going to be about, we know what our argument is, and we know how we're going to explain that argument, the next thing we need to do now is find our body paragraphs with the bucketing activity. And this is where we get into this portion here for the bucketing activity. Now, to work on the bucketing activity, you'll need to have a fully completed chicken thesis planner, because the information you provide up here will then be applied down to your bucketing activity. Now, the most common mistake that most kids make when it comes to essay writing, especially when it comes to their body paragraphs, is they're not really sure what they're going to be writing about in their essay. They know they have 5 paragraphs they need to write about. They know that they need to provide 3 case points, but they're like, how do I go about writing about my paper? Now, whether you're aware of it or not, when you look at your case points that you give in your thesis statement, your case points are actually your body paragraphs. So what is body paragraph number 1 going to be about? It's going to be about graphics, about modern warfare, what makes it so great, why the graphics are so awesome. In this example, body paragraph number 2 is going to be about the story of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, okay? And that whole paragraph is dedicated to the story aspect of the game, why it makes it the greatest game of all time. And body paragraph number 3, if you guessed it's going to be the multiplayer case point, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what each of your guys' body paragraphs is made up of. Each one of your case point is a separate body paragraph in your paper. So long as you know what your case points are, it doesn't matter how long your paper has to be, because you know that each of your paragraphs is dedicated to a different case point. That's how it works, okay? And that's the nice thing about essay writing. Like I said, it follows a very specific formula. Your argument and your case points, all right? And that's pretty much how it works for this part. So that's what your guys' bucketing activity is dedicated to. So now what you need to do, of course, is start to label your guys' different buckets. And like I said before, each of these buckets is a different body paragraph, because each of these body paragraphs is dedicated to a different case point. So for case point number 1, I'm going to put down graphics. Why am I putting down graphics? The reason why is because that was my very first case point I brought up in my thesis statement. For case point number 2, I'm going to put in story. Why am I putting story in? The reason why is because that was the second case point in my thesis statement. So that's what my second body paragraph is going to be about. And finally, we have case point number 3. So let's go and talk about that one. And case point number 3 is multiplayer. So multiplayer, like that. All right. And the reason why that's my third case point and my third body paragraph, because that's my third case point that I have in my thesis statement. So now that we have that part taken care of, we know exactly what each of our body paragraphs are going to be about. So let me clear out my annotations here. And let's go and talk about the actual bucket activity specifically, all right? Now we know exactly what each of our body paragraphs are about, generally speaking. Now what we need to do for our bucket activity is get very specific about what specifically about the graphics makes Call of Duty the greatest game of all time. What specifically about Call of Duty's story makes it the greatest game of all time. What specifically about multiplayer in Call of Duty makes it the best game of all time. And that's where your bucketing activity comes in. Normally, when you guys are working on an essay, you need to find sources of information in order to support your guys' arguments, okay? So this is where your research notes would come into play. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're working on a document-based question, doesn't matter if you're doing a general research project, this is where your research comes in that you guys worked in for your research notes, okay? Now, typically what you want to do for each one of your guys' case points, you want to provide 2 sets of examples for each one of your guys' body paragraphs. All right, that's pretty much what you want to do for that part. And then once you have your 2 examples for each one of your guys' body paragraphs, you then explain in the information column what specifically about that example proves your point. Now, for my more astute viewers and astute students, you'll notice that these bucket activities look like mini 2-column notes. And if you think they look like miniature 2-column notes, you're absolutely right, because that's what they are. All right, that's basically what they are. They're your research notes being put into individual buckets. So you take your research and you put it into the individual buckets that matches your case point. That's why it's called a bucketing activity. All right, see what I did there? Pretty cool. So that's what you would do. So for example, let's go back to my example here. I'm going to type in here now so that way we can talk about it. Let's pretend I believe that, let's talk about the graphics. Let's talk about how it has 1.7 gigabytes of processing power, for example. And let's say for my second case point, let's see here. Let me go and just shrink this up a little bit. Let's say for my second case point, I want to talk about the Unreal engine, all right, which is a programming engine for this program, okay? So now that I have my 2 examples, what I do now is just use little bullet points. I now talk about the information specifically. I will talk about like the processing power of a 1.7 gigabyte, whatever, and I just type in my information there. For my Unreal Engine example, just get that a little more space there. I do exactly the same thing for that. So I just start typing about the Unreal Engine. The Unreal Programming Engine is the most powerful, and then I just go and talk about the information about that as well. Okay, that's pretty much how you guys do your bucketing activities. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Ooh, don't want to delete all my material, just want to delete the text. So I have to go in here and just delete the text one at a time. Okay, there we go. So that's basically what you need to do when it comes to your bucketing activities. Okay, you put down your source information, or your examples in this case, and then of course you talk about the information that you're going to talk about, specifically explaining why your case point is valid. All right, and that's how it works. So for those of you guys who are in my 6th grade class, for example, whatever research you'd find, these were your sources would come in, and you provide information there. For those of you who are in my 7th grade classes, if you're working out documents-based question essay, you would provide what documents you have. All right, you must have at least 2 different examples for each one of your guys' case points. All right, 2 as a minimum. Now, if you provide 3 or more, that's all fine. That is perfectly fine. You can allow to do that. That is not a problem at all. All right, that is more, and that actually would go into the whole extra credit portion of it as well, providing multiple examples besides the minimum of 2. That'd be a perfect example of doing so. Okay. Now let's pretend, for example, and during your research, you find out that you found some information from, let's say, one source, but you find out that that piece of information could also work for another case point. Are you allowed to use that same source for it? Yeah, you can if you want to. That's perfectly fine, because some of the information is so broad it can actually fit in multiple categories. That's perfectly fine. Now let's pretend that we're working on this, and let's say for the graphics, I can only find one example of what makes the graphics so great for Call of Duty making it the greatest game of all time. What should I do in that case? You're like, oh no, Mr. Mikasa, I can only find one piece of information or one example of why my case point is good. In that case, if that should happen, that means that your case point is no good. Which that means is that you need to find a different case point to use instead. So let's say we'll talk about Call of Duty points, for example. All right, let's just use that as an example for that one. You can change your case points and your materials as you go through it. After all, the key word about this is the word plan. It is a plan for right now, okay? So if you end up changing it between your checking with thesis planner to the bucket activity, and you want to change it, that is perfectly allowable because it's a planner. It's helping you guys plan your guys' essay. All right, so do not feel pressure that you got. Once you pick your case points, you got to stick with them. If you're finding out that your case point is not working for you, by all means, pick a different one. It's better to make changes now in the planning phase than try to do it when you're typing up your final draft. Trust me, it's much easier to fix at this stage of the game, okay? So what I want you to do now is take some time for yourself. I want you to start filling out your guys' bucketing activities. I want you guys to work on that real fast and get that completed. Once you guys are done filling out your bucketing activities, come back to this video and we'll show you guys how to do the outline, okay? So I will see you guys after the break. All right, so now we're back with our planner. So as you can see here, I now have my bucketing activity fully completed. As you can see, I got all 3 of my case points. I now talk about my 2 examples for each of my case points, and I provide information about each of my case points as well. So now I know exactly what my body paragraphs are going to be about. So when I talk about Call of Duty points, for example, in my very first body paragraph, I'll be talking about weapon upgrades as well as upgrades for your avatar skins. And I will explain how this allows for the playability of all weapons and also allows for unlimited character optimization, as an example, okay? Same thing, my second source on story. I can then talk about based on real life events and historical references. I will then talk about like how the campaign missions of Call of Duty addresses real life issues of conflict using real life examples. I'll then talk about how Call of Duty uses real life examples of events in history as context for the story. See how this kind of flows out? That's the purpose of doing a bucketing activity. By doing this way, you actually let out what your body paragraphs are going to be about, and does most of the work for you. All you have to do now is just kind of write it out. Is all you have to do. All right, so at this point now, you should be done with your Chicken Foot Thesis Planner. You should be done with your bucketing activity. The last thing we're going to work on now is your guys' essay planner. Okay, so let me go and just close this out real fast. Let me go and get this fixed here. Okay, so now that we have everything laid out in our Chicken Foot Thesis Planner as well as our bucketing activity, now it's time to do the essay outline, all right? As you can see, this is represented by boxes. The first box is based on your introduction paragraph. The second box is on your body paragraph number 1. Body paragraph number 2. body paragraph number 3. And then finally you have your conclusion paragraph, and when you combine these things together with your powers combined, you've made a 5-paragraph essay. All right, now the nice thing about this essay planner, it just kind of gives you an idea of what your essay is going to be about. And all you can see here, you got the information here. All you need to do is just type in the information about your topic. So for example, if we're talking about a topic sentence, give me a lead sentence. So for example, if I was to fill this out, just click on this little box here and start typing my sentence. There have been many great video games throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, period. So there, for example, I can give you my topic sentence about video games. And then next part talks about your background information, time, place, situation. This is where we're getting the context of what's going on. Also known as background info is what it's known as, okay? So for example, I could say, let's talk about time period. Since the mid-20th century, nope, not 29th, that's in the future. There you go, century. So there's my time. The quick little notation about place, the American video game industry. Now talk about situation. Has increased tenfold to become one of the largest industries in the world. Okay, that's just an example we can talk about, all right? So that's what you guys will be doing for this part. You just fill in the information as you guys go through. Now, do you need to provide full sentences for this one? Not necessarily. If you just want to leave little notations, that's perfectly fine as well. For example, if I just said mid-20th century, comma, America video game industry, comma, and largest industries in the world, comma, that would be perfectly fine. These are quick notations. You don't need to necessarily write full sentences. If you're writing full sentences in your boxes, all right, don't do that, because if that was the case, what would be the point of you writing up a final draft? You know what I'm saying? Just quick little adjustments I need to do. Now, I will require you, however, to do 2 things where I want you to write out your entire sentence, okay? The first is I want you to write out the analytical question that you're answering for your essay. I want you to actually write that out. Same thing with your thesis statement. I want you to write that out. I want you to do that for the introduction portion, and I want you to do exactly the same thing for your conclusion as well, okay? That's how you guys will lay those out. And that's very, very important, because I want you to be aware of what your paper is about. That's why. So for example, if I go to our body paragraphs here, I can just do something like this. So for example, my first case point is COD points. And my first example, upgrades. Then a couple of things about my explanation about that. My second example, what was the thing I put up there? Let me take a look here real fast. It was avatar upgrades, so I could put down avatar skins. And then of course just give you some information about that. All I need to do is just give me some quick notations on each of your guys' little body paragraphs, and that part will be completely done as well. Now the last thing we're going to talk about real quick is your conclusion paragraph. Now a lot of students struggle with a conclusion paragraph, and you really shouldn't be sad about a conclusion paragraph, okay? And the reason why is because a conclusion paragraph is not that difficult, because once you've written your introduction paragraph, whether you wrote it or not, you've actually outlined your conclusion paragraph as well. Because when you look at it, they basically mirror each other, right? So for example, the very last thing you have in your introduction paragraph is your thesis statement. All right, same thing with your analytical question. Whereas you can see here, we have your analytical question and your thesis statement. We now have some background information about your topic. We'll now just give a summary of what your argument was about, all right? These are really simple, because once you've done this part, you've pretty much done this part right here on the bottom. Now, the most thing that most kids get confused with is this part here called the although statement, okay? So what is the although statement? The although statement is basically saying that yes, you are aware that there are other arguments out there that exist for the question, but your specific argument is the most correct. And why, all right? So that's pretty much how it works. So if I was to do this one, for example, let's say, if I was to do the although statement for my video games, although there are many incredible video games on the market, comma, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is the best because of blank, all right? And you just kind of use that as a vein, as kind of like a summary of what your argument was about. And then finally, of course, misspelled modern there. And of course, finally, you have your conclusion sentence, just a couple notations which includes your sentence, and then you're done. So once you guys are done outlining your essay, you've actually done a lot of groundwork for your essay already. All you need to do now is just fill in the blanks and actually write in sentences and then type away on your Google Doc to make your guys' final draft. That's the nice thing about doing one of these planners like this. Like I said, essay writing is actually really simple. It's actually just very formulaic, and once you figure out what the formula is and how to go about doing it, writing essays becomes very easy. In fact, it goes by really quick once you figure out how to do it, all right? And the thing about essay writing that's the most important part is planning it out. Because once you have that plan in place, you know, it's just running it out at that point, and that's the easiest part of the entire process. Alright you guys, so what I want you to do now for the rest of the class is for you guys to work on your planners, finish up your guys' essay planners, your bucketing activities, as well as your chicken foot thesis planners. And of course, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to message me. I'll get right back to you guys as quick as I can. That's good, dude, for this video lesson, you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.